Hey, good morning.
Morning.
I'm glad you're here for our third workshop on our Agabus Co-op program. Our church is trying to get started. On a weekly basis, as we come to church, Pastor Rick, Pastor Randy are in the pulpit all the time, giving us out of the Bible and that, verses that we're going over. And they go through, a lot of times we'll show us like out of the New King James Version or the ESV or whatever type of version is out there that we might better understand God's Word is in there. Well, I'm going to ask the question starting out as we do this. Do you guys have the Agabus version of the Bible in that? There is not one, but if you had a version of Agabus, if you looked at Isaiah 40, it says that the grass withers, the flowers fade, all the seeds that I plant die, don't grow up, burn up, and I have nothing but black flying gnats all around my flats that are out there.
Sounds like my house.
That's the verse that we're going to lean on today as we go into our workshop and that. Take a look at how we're doing, what we've been accomplishing, what hasn't taken place, some suggestions for getting through probably the toughest season of all, which is the heat of summer and that, as we attempt to sprout seeds and grow crop and product for our food source going through. So what I'd like to do is open a little bit in prayer, and we'll get into some discussion. This one I want to make into as much of an interactive session as we've had before. I've asked you guys to bring in a couple of your plants and that, good, bad, and ugly, that we might take a look at them, what's going on, because that's how we're going to learn, and I'll get into kind of the program and all that itself. So let's start with prayer, and we'll take off from there. Heavenly Father, Lord God, we thank you for the opportunity to put on one more workshop on this co-op that you've invited your church to partake of and to participate. Lord God, your message says that somehow or another we are to preach your gospel and, if necessary, to use words. Father, our desire of this church is to be a church that's prepared and unafraid of anything that may be coming down the road. And Father, that through a seed and through a 2-inch net cup, with no other words spoken in that they might see you and see the message of your gospel into it. One that we might be able to provide for ourselves in times of shortcoming, but also provide a means of showing what a Christian faith looks like in that. By teaching and showing this example to neighbors and friends and those who might come across what you have taking place in this church. So we thank you for this time. We ask you to be with us today as we explore a little bit about the tough season of summer coming up, and Lord, in anticipation of a goal that we want to reach by a couple of months from now as we start this program officially. It's in your Son's name I pray. Amen. Amen. Welcome to summer. I've had an opportunity to be in, around, either in person, by pictures, by text type of thing, of a lot of what you have going on producing these little crops. And I want a lot of interaction in that taking place today, that we might learn from each other. One of the things that we have going on that's underutilized is the Slack app that's out there. Okay? There's an opportunity that Pastor Rick, Pastor Randy provided us through the use of Slack in that for an opportunity for just communication in general with everybody for what's going on, what's taking place, how are we doing, okay? And that does indeed include the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? We just wrapped up Saturday morning men's groups we do on a weekly basis and all that, okay? One of the toughest things in men's ministry is, one, getting guys to walk through the door and to sit at a table, but two, for them to open up, okay? But week after week after week, with the guys that we have showing up around the table, and that little things begin to come up, little situations that we can deal with collectively through God's Word and through each other, ministering to each other to grow and to change because of what happens when men come together, when the church comes together, when fellowship happens, it's taking place. So what I highly encourage you to do is to further make use of The Slack app that's out there under the Agabus Co-op that's there for all pictures, all questions, all that's going on. If they're directed to me, I'm going to do everything I can. If you know me, I will do everything I possibly can as soon as possible to reply to anything and everything that comes in the door. But I think there's an awful lot of opportunity for each one of us to start conversations with one another. This is working, this is not working type of thing. Pictures, what am I doing wrong? How can you help me? I've got this situation that's taking place, okay? Out of that, we're gonna get the strength and the confidence to go through and accomplish this thing of getting a little tiny seed to grow and to produce this edible plant on the other end, okay? With that in mind, as we go through and get ready to take on August and September and October coming up, the hottest part in Southern California, the toughest time to be growing crop that's out there. I want us to pick a date, and I have not cleared this with the powers to be, but I would like October 1st, that between now and October 1st, that we go through summertime, we go through this learning curve as much as possible. We start to share an awful lot more information through the Slack app and that, through workshops that's going on, through getting together, on and on. That on October the 1st, we can say I've got enough confidence that I can get 80% of my seeds to germinate and to grow. I'm confident with this one. I especially am good at doing cucumber or kale or broccoli or spinach or whatever it is, and I'd like to offer that up for the church as my specialty crop that's going on, okay? So we've got an opportunity, as always, and that's why we have started this entire session up front. Possibilities of shortcomings, food things that are out there, all that's going on, look as if somewhere between fall and spring is when it's going to be most apparent or start to show itself, should it be a reality that takes place. We have this practice time that's coming up. That's what I want to do, is go through and answer the questions and get us to the point that we're confident enough to take this in and not throw the tray away and say, I'm done, okay? I can't get anything to grow. This is a worthless project going through it, okay? We can do it. We can do this going on. Simple things. One of the big areas, as I've looked at pictures and I've been to houses, residences, locations where plants and that are growing, is one of the things that I'd like to take a look at is, for you to take a look at, is the environment that you're growing the plants in. Okay? That environment by itself, a microclimate if you want to call it, because what you have and your next door neighbor have could be two totally different situations that's going on. Once you become aware of what your environment is, what your obstacles are that you need to overcome, but there, as always, are some simple, general things that can be done that then we need to fine-tune down. It's exactly the same thing we're doing on the growing. I'm good at this crop, but I'm not good at that one. But in general, all these things will work. So what I would like to do is talk about heat, light, sun, shade, fertilizer, strengthening the plant. We had different scenarios that have come up. And what I want to do is take the opportunity for you guys, through plants that you have brought, that we can have some discussion as to what's going on. How come I can't get through this? Okay? Why do I have little tiny black gnats flying all over the place? It's going through. Why are my plants drying out 2, 3, 4 times a day? Going through. All of which kind of tumbles on itself. And I'm ending up with gnats because I'm watering 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. My environment's long, my plants are weak, they're not germinating, it's coming up, okay? It's the environment that we're trying to grow the product into. And it also has to do with the time of year. If your focus right now is to do cool season vegetables, lettuces, cabbage, all the cool season crops that are out there. It's summertime, folks, okay? if you want to grow a cool season crop, okay, you can't grow it outdoors on a patio in 95-degree French Valley weather coming up, okay? As we've gone through these workshops and that, we've talked about practicing indoor and outdoor, okay? Just because it's summertime and you want to grow lettuce, primarily going through, you can do them outside, but I need to get them started first. I need to get them into an environment that can produce and be capable of producing a seedling that I can then take to an outdoor environment, harden off, get accustomed to the environment that we're going to introduce them to, and then grow them under conditions that will favor lessening the intensity of the sun and get you through an extended period of time. And also on things like lettuce and that, instead of allowing the plant to be able to grow completely and rely on that one plant, because there are varieties of lettuce and that, arugulas, everything else, that are heat resistant or slow bolting. Bolting is that stalk in the flower stalk that gets produced. That basically ends the usefulness of the plant itself. It produces the bitterness in the food crop itself if you're eating it. But it's good for collecting seeds for next crop. It's out there. So we'll take the bolting if nothing else, okay? If you're gonna try to do that, what you're gonna have to do is not rely on the plant getting to full maturity. You're gonna have to start doing cycles of plant material. If it's gonna take 45 or 50 days to produce a full head of lettuce in that going through, I encourage you to plant more individual plants under a controlled environment with an expectation that it's going to be about a 21 to 28 day crop where you can take cuttings off of it, take the lettuce that grows at that point, but you're going to be cycling seed back behind it, timing it out so that as you're taking and harvesting from your crop on that, you have young plants coming back behind it to get you through the heat season in a protected environment in that, okay? But the secret is to take a look at the environment that you're wanting to produce the crop in overall, okay? A lot of the answer that we're going to be going through in that today is a simple thing, and this is called shade cloth, okay? This is sold in percentages of sun blocking, sun shade, okay? Shade cloth. So this particular one is 64 to 70%. It's one of these weird numbers. This was a local supplier. I'm attempting to source materials locally. In the event, you know, we can't rely on Amazon or whoever from wherever that's out there. This simple piece of fabric here can make the difference between seeds germinating and not germinating, not overwatering them, not seeing them dry out on a regular basis in that, overwatering, producing moist environments, producing the possibility of fungus and mold in your crop, which is why your plants are falling over and dying off, the production of suddenly gnats, especially fungus gnats, what they're called, suddenly flying around with little tiny, pesky, tiny gnats in that. That's an indication you've got a moisture problem that's going on, okay? So we're gonna go through some scenarios of how to look at all of these. So, take a look at the environment that you have in there. There are grow areas that I've seen that are basically like bookshelf type setups in that, okay? Outdoors, under patio covers, under umbrellas, under whatever the scenario is, okay? Shade is good, but we need sunlight in order for photosynthesis to take place. The plant might be able to grow and continue itself on. So we need to find a balance between the two of them. We need air circulation on a steady basis in that, okay? You need to realize that the growing medium that we're using, the coco coir with the perlite and that's in it holds a significant amount of moisture. What appears to be dry on the top doesn't mean that you go through and everything's dry. I'm going to go through and pour more water on the top of the plant itself. Okay? The best way for watering, especially on the seedling stage in that, is through the bottom. Take a cup out, water here, water down inside here. Okay? Put it down, don't water. We have the mist bottle just to lightly put a seal, a film of water back on the top of the plant again. The moisture is contained within the net cup itself, and the humidity net is trapped down below underneath the styrofoam to help get what's taking place. The rest of what's happening can be an excessive amount of heat that is knocking you down. Too much intense sunlight to the point that the plant can't deal with that level of intensity that's in there. Radiant heat. Things like I have it on a side yard, on a rack, up against my stucco house with a concrete floor and a block wall 3 feet away.
Go ahead, use my name, I don't care. Throw her under the bus, she's cool with
Okay?
that.
Yep, that's what she's got.
Me
Okay?
too, kind of.
What you're doing is, the area is subject to trapping the heat into the stucco, into the shelf you have it on. The concrete floor is absorbing heat. The block wall is absorbing heat. It's all adding to the environment that you're attempting to get a plant to grow. Tough enough in summertime anyway, and that's when ideal soil growing conditions that would be 80 as the top, okay? It gets through higher temperatures and that type of thing. But when you've got 95-degree sun against a stucco building and a concrete floor and a block wall that's going through, that trapped radiant heat. And in addition to that, you've got the flats on top of a solid shelf surface, not an open rack, not wire, not things that are to it. Everything is connected to everything, and you're transferring heat one to another, okay? And you're getting the intensity of the sun coming through, which is too much for the plant to handle. You're getting the generated heat, which is now warming the water, warming the airspace that's in here, and the seeds are going, I'm done, okay? I can't pull this off. So what we're looking to do is to alter the environment that the plants are growing through, okay? So, the idea is to generate shade going through. Now, shade cloth is sold 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, on up in that. Which one do I use? Okay? Yep. As a general statement, for where we're at, for what we're attempting to do, to generate seeds in that, 50 to 60% shade cloth would be a recommendation to put it through. It can alter the temperature by 10 to 15, 18, as much as 20 degrees just with a shade cloth cover over the top of it in that, okay? Adding additional airflow. If you're on a solid bench and we're attempting to change things, okay? As you were saying, simple little thing of just putting foam or something underneath the bottom so you get airflow that's coming in. You've broken the connection between the flat and the flat table with no holes or circulation going through it and that. We're going to try to open this up. Under ideal situations where the location of your grow would be is out in an area where it's not up against a building, it's not close to a concrete floor, it's not close to a block wall that's out there. You can get free airflow and full sunlight that's going through, okay? And under a perfect world, you would have your flats oriented in a north-south direction because the sun is traveling east to west, which means you're going to get full even distribution of sunlight over the path that you've laid out there, okay? Now, that's an ideal setup that's going through. What we're attempting to do is to mimic as many of those variables as possible that your grow might be that much more successful going through, okay? So, simple addition, this little frame is one obviously over a single flat. I'm asking you to kind of view this as a grow area that you're working with, okay? Far beyond the boundaries of a single flat, but if you're growing one flat right now, you can do it on a single flat, okay? The effects will be identical to what's going on. The attempt would be to have open airspace underneath it with a shade top, just covering the top of the frame structure itself, okay? This running north to south, east to west, sun exposure going over the top of it and that, okay? With that air circulation that's around it, okay? With the blocking of the sun, with the dropping of those temperatures and that, you have significantly enhanced the ability of seed to germinate and to grow, okay? Shade is wonderful, but shade to the exclusion of sunlight eliminates what the plant needs, the ability to accomplish photosynthesis. Michael?
I was just gonna say, I got one on my phone. You can download a simple app. Mine's on Android. It's called Lux. It's a light meter. It uses the light sensor on your phone, and you can just download the app, and you can just go out under your patio cover. You're gonna see it's like 6,000 to 8,000. Under the 50% shade cloth, you're around 50,000 lux. Direct sunlight, you're around 125, 30, 40,000. I mean, you can see how much just that ambient light under your patio cover is nothing really. I mean, it's not much. I mean, my grow lights are 18,000, I think, so. But it's just a simple app you can download. I think it's free. I mean, they got like little pop-up ads on it or whatever, but you can just go see what the light is.
If I could ask you to put that on
Yeah.
the Slack app, okay? It's out there.
Light meter? Lux, L-U-X.
This is the kind of conversations that I'm looking to accomplish from today, okay? We've been attempting to go from a concept of this thing and under the worst case scenario. Water is restricted, no power that's out there. Can I still produce an edible crop? Feed my family, feed the neighbors, do whatever I'm gonna do, okay? So, under these situations, we want to do everything that we can to accomplish the best environment possible for the production of the plants itself, okay? And like I say, an awful lot of the vegetable crops. And I'll even use tomatoes, okay? Michael's doing tomatoes, thank you for doing that. Michael's using a system called Dutch bucket, okay? Which is basically a tomato plant in a 5-gallon bucket with a continual water flow and that going through it from a reservoir of water that in his case is dug into the ground. I'm gonna talk about that in just a second, okay? With a pump on it, okay? That pumps through it, through spaghetti tubing, delivers water on cycles through the plant, keeping the moisture up. In the water reservoir, he has nutrients as well, so it's continually being pumped through, it's being refreshing, it's being oxygenated, all the things that are taking place.
Does it run on solar?
I'm sorry?
Does it run on solar?
Yes. I'll get into that a little bit, yes.
It's plugged in right now, but it's about 100 watts, so I could throw a panel out there and run the whole thing if I needed to, yeah.
And that's kind of the end product of today's discussion with things like solar down the road, okay? And one of the things you may be saying to yourself is, well, yeah, I signed up for this thing because I thought this was basically this free, no cost type of a deal, all right? Everything has costs and that connected to it, Matt. There are ways of accomplishing things as inexpensively as we can possibly present, and that's what we're attempting to do, okay? But there are things like solar panels, one-time investment, 100 watt, one 300 watt panel, and the wiring to make things happen going through, connected to a pump, okay? Now you have daytime electricity net going through, at least, okay? So there are things down at the end of as we get through this discussion that we can look at that. I'm not trying to empty your wallets, okay? I'm not trying to make a dime out of this whole deal. But there are ways that if we're gonna get into this thing, we need to take a serious look at small investments in that will last years. This material here, 10, 12, 15 years.
Right.
Once you make the investment, okay? And I'm not talking a huge area, okay? This piece, roughly 2 by 6, it's out there, $10, I think. It was given to me by the supplier as a sample. And it's through an ag supply that I get a lot of stuff from my ponds and that are out there. I'm not talking major money, but if we want to have any opportunity for doing something, we need to take a look at what's needed in your particular case. Not everybody may need this, okay? But it's definitely something to enhance what we're going through, especially during the summertime period. I mentioned Michael and his tomatoes and that. As wonderful a system as that is, okay? The addition of the moving water, buying basically an oversized pump for what he needs. He has a diverter valve on, which allows excess water that he doesn't need going through to be right straight back into the source tank that's out there. That movement alone is adding oxygen to the water, okay? That movement of water going through the piping system and through the spaghetti tubing down into each individual plant, okay? As it's going through, it's carrying oxygen to it, okay? That's an enormous plus, okay? We're talking the crack key system, okay? This is worst case scenario, can I still produce a crop in that, okay? So, adding the oxygen in that is a huge plus, no doubt about it. The moving water is going through, basically a fresh supply of water. His source tank is dug into the ground. So the tank itself is buried down into the ground itself. Last I checked with him, his constant temperature on his water, 74 degrees. Okay? Now, put that in a container, and I put the foil on here today for a reason, but in a container without this, growing plants. Net pot's in, okay? Water's up to the bottom of the net pot. This airspace that's here, out in not even full sun, good morning sun on her exposure that's out there, okay? Stick a thermometer inside the container. The temperature is 97 degrees, okay? 97 degrees. How come my spinach plant isn't growing? I wonder why. Okay?
Boiling.
What do we do? Okay? Things like shade cloth over the top. We've knocked down the temperature. Okay? Getting away from radiant sources that can contribute to it. Okay? Reflecting heat back off so we don't have that potential to absorb as much of the heat energy into the airspace. And it's the airspace that's going to heat up initially, and the water is going to join in with that because it's not being transferred or moved, and there's no fresh oxygen that's taking place that's in it. Okay? So with the simple addition of a foil overlay on the outside, okay? Shiny side out on the foil, there's both sides, there's a shiny side. Shiny side to the out, it's here, put it back in, you'll lower your temperature on here. You'll reflect the heat back off. Piece of shade cloth over the top of the area with air circulation space underneath it. Travel of the sun is not going to be able to get in and beat on the plants. You got ambient light, you got enough of an allowance of sunlight through the fabric in that sunlight can accomplish photosynthesis taking place and the plant can continue to grow. Okay? These are the ways to offset even warm season crops like tomatoes and that. As we get closer and closer to August, September, October, even with tomato crops, and we get into French Valley reality of 100, 102, 106, 112, okay, for a couple days or for a 10 or 12 or 14 day period of time, it's summer, okay? That's what we get around here. Even on tomato plants and that love hot weather, love warm weather. I grow tomatoes anywhere, okay? you get that hot going through, you get flower that produces, and all of a sudden you come out and all the flower is sitting on the ground and you're not getting fruit anymore, okay? The intensity of the sunlight is now causing it to be too much of a good thing, even for a crop like tomatoes. In that case, the recommendation is minimum of like 40 to 50% shade cloth over the top of them, okay? Even on a full sun, heat-loving crop like tomatoes. I don't care if you're in French Valley or you're down in Laguna Beach or wherever you're at. If you're getting temperatures that are approaching that and light intensity that's coming through, that's strong. You need to change the environment that the plant's in for the best results going in, okay? So shade cloth would be somewhere in the future of that tomato crop going through. What we're trying to do is to get us into, how do I just get my darn plants to germinate and grow right now, okay? And it all comes back to that same thing. We need to change and take a look at your individual environment that you're producing crop in and give it as many of the elements that it needs to accomplish. 100% would be wonderful, okay? How close can you get to those things? Open space, perfect sun patterns going through, temperature control, air circulation going into it, okay? And controlling the water source and strength of nutrients and that's going through, okay? Now, I got my plants are coming up, they get this tall and they just burn up, or I plant them and the next day come over and they're all just leaning over in the pot now, okay? How come? One, just cause is one of the possibilities, okay? It grows up, it didn't have the strength, it just gave up and died, okay? Better conditions, better opportunity is that you have the beginning of things like potentially disease and that's coming into it. We have selected for our grow as a church here, the Cocoa Core Perlite. It's as close as we can get to a sterilized, inert ingredient that doesn't carry with it a lot of inherent mold and fungus and that kind of stuff built into the product. That's the reason why we're using it. We're using it because it holds moisture so well. Using the perlite because it opens up airspace and that's into it, okay? But even so, I'm using Cocoa Core Perlite. Put my seeds in, they get 1 inch, 2 inches tall, and I come out the next morning and they're bent over and laying on the ground, fried out, okay? There is a possibility you're beginning to see things like disease and that starting into the medium that you're growing, the tray that you're attempting to get started into to produce vegetable crop on. The answer to that is, once again, we need to change the environment that's going through, okay? High temperature demand, high sun intensity, everything that's contributed to you going, oh, that's dry, and I need to water it again, and again, and again, going back through, is saturating that area with moisture in that. When the material itself is built, it's made to hold moisture, a large amount of moisture in the medium itself, okay? That's not the problem. The problem is that we continually keep adding water in the air, all around us in this room, okay? Or mold and fungus spores all around us in that. If you add heat, if you add humidity, if you add stagnant conditions without airflow in that to it, you are enhancing every bit of those to occur on whatever surface you want to grow in. So sanitation, number one. Do we start out with clean trays, clean net crop, net pots, all that going through? Yep, okay. We're in summertime, we're in high heat, I keep getting up and this is what keeps happening. It gets up just a little bit and falls over. Yeah. You're each given a little missing bar. And you have it just going through the film of water on the top. Okay? To seal the surface, you understand the moisture is in the net cup area itself, in there. If you were to take out one of your plants, okay, take it out of the pot and squeeze it in your hand that you think is dry, that you'd be amazed how much moisture you're going to squeeze out of that. It's there. Okay? It's stress environments that you're trying to overcome. And putting more water on doesn't really add to it now, because watering should be from beneath where it can wick itself up through. The tray is set up. The slots are set up for venting. The top of the plant itself is set up to vent out, okay? But we need to set up the rest of the elements to make all those come together, okay? There are some pretty simple, if you put it into curative type things, preventative as well, that you put into practice. And again, not trying to spend your money, okay? Simple little fungicide type sprays that you can create. All natural, all safe, okay? Is a very, very good practice, especially the warmer that we get going into summertime, okay? For that potential for the enhancement of molds and funguses and that type of stuff, damping off, all the fun little things that plants get, can be cut down, okay? There's a good, better, and a best, okay? I'm gonna put them on the Slack app. I'm gonna tell you what they are, okay? But too many of these workshops and that was, I didn't quite get the notes of what it was. Can you tell me again what it is, okay? So I'm gonna tell you what they are, good, better, and best, okay? But I'll put them on the Slack app so they're out there and available. Because again, that's the communication vehicle that we want to be using with everybody, okay? Put it out there and say, hey, I tried this, I tried that, this worked, this didn't work, whatever the case was, okay? Good fungicide, hydrogen peroxide, simple enough, okay? 10 to 20% hydrogen peroxide mixed with a solution of water, mist it over, and I'm talking from day one, okay? We're gonna go through and take a tray and net cups and that hopefully you have cleaned and are sterilized to the point that you're ready to start planting that. We're gonna put one more layer of protection net on as we start to plant, okay? Go through and spray, just mist the outside, the inside, okay? Now put your coco coir in, put your seed in, okay? And plant them out, okay? I'll go through the three of them because it's the same procedure on each of them. Hydrogen peroxide, number one by itself, okay? Can knock down a whole bunch of stuff, okay? That's good. Better, hydrogen peroxide and white vinegar. An ounce of 3% hydrogen peroxide, an ounce of white vinegar mixed with 32 ounces of water, okay? Is better than just hydrogen peroxide, okay? Best, either thyme oil or oregano oil mixed with, because it's a oil, attempting to mix with water, we need to add an emulsifier to mix them together so they don't stay separated out, okay? Sunflower lecithin is a wonderful, wonderful, simple emulsifier to put in, okay? All these are gonna go onto the Slack app that's there. I'm just telling you there are ways of doing it, okay? Potassium silicate, potassium bicarbonate as an emulsifier, okay? Others are there, okay? Simplicity's sake, easy to remember, whatever. Sunflower lecithin, readily available. Check it, Amazon, somebody. I checked, 2-pound container of sunflower lecithin, okay? Was $32. It would be enough to do this church for quite a long period of time. Okay. It's small amounts that are put in. I'll put the recipe on there for you. Okay? Now, we have situations where the plants have been falling over. We have summertime conditions that are here, so what we're going to do is do everything we can to change the environment, to change the conditions, to give us a better possibility of growth. So I picked out peroxide and vinegar, thyme oregano oil, and an emulsifier mixed together. I've made that decision, I'm going to do that, okay? You've now sprayed everything down, you've planted your crop, the seeds are in, you're under a shade cover, you've got air circulation going around it, okay? You've changed the environment that's in there as a safeguard going through. Until that plant is up and actively growing, you're gonna water through the bottom into the tray for the purpose of wicking moisture and holding the humidity down into the tray itself. On the top, for that sheet film of water just to reseal the surface and that going through. You have your mixture, peroxide, peroxide vinegar, oregano, thyme oil, whatever you've selected to use, okay? Every day, as you go through, this is what you're gonna use to spray over the top, this into it. You're disinfecting your tray, your seeds, you're protecting them as they begin to germinate out, okay? So, would highly recommend, in general, as a practice, that's something I would encourage you to do. As we get into this time of year, when everything presents itself for every problem that you can come up with, because of intense light and intense heat and all that goes together, I strongly encourage you to make a selection for something as a preventative that's out there, okay? Then get on Slack and tell everybody what you're doing. I tried this before. I lost 60% of this cucumber crop, okay? I tried it with peroxide net and it worked for me, and this is how I mixed it, okay? And here's a picture of my plant. Here's a dead one, here's one that's treated in that, okay? Put it up here, okay? The more we begin to open up, ask the questions, and say what's going on, the better we're gonna get as we get into fall with the target date that we've gotta get through summer and we've gotta get through this practice session, that you're confident enough to pick up a tray, pick up some seeds and go, yep, I'm ready to grow. I'm sorry.
Just one clarification
Yeah.
on the fungicide.
Yeah.
When you're spraying the tops, am I just trying to spray the soil, or am I spraying my actual seedling leaves?
Okay, you're spraying up until the point that your seedling has broken through and you got the seed leaves are now presenting, okay?
Okay.
So you're up at that point, from that point forward, because if you're at that stage, under this type of a system, you should have roots that are already
Yes.
producing
Yes.
through the bottom, okay? So its moisture source from then on would be that constant supply of moisture that you're keeping on a steady basis inside the tray, okay? You're also very quickly approaching that time when it's time to shift up, okay? The whole purpose of this thing in germinating the seed, yep, I need a plant to grow, okay? But what I want more than that plant to grow as quickly as possible is for those roots to get through that container so that I can put it into a larger environment with more air available to it, with its own water source that it can draw nutrients from, okay? That it can take off and grow and become strong enough by itself as soon as possible to get into that container, okay? Any questions on this part so far? Yes, ma'am.
So when do you know that it needs to be transferred?
I'm sorry?
When do you know, or how do you know that it needs to be transferred?
Okay, I'm getting
When do you know when it's supposed to be transferred from there to the larger one?
somebody have,
Just take everything.
Take
Keep pointing at it.
Take everything. Look how nice those look.
Little example.
okay, I'm gonna grab and presume one of these, the bean plant, okay? That's when you know, okay?
It's to that
In
stage.
fact, this is beyond
Yeah.
ready to go, okay? When you got roots, the size of the roots, pay attention as your plant begins to germinate in that, and you can almost, when I was in college going through horticulture, that we had to, I took trees during winter time, because the professor said, you can't identify it without looking at just the bark and the trunk and that, you don't know your trees, okay? If you don't know your plant by the roots, size of the roots, the number of roots, the type of roots and that it produces, start to get familiar with it, okay? Yes, ma'am.
What if you have leaves, but the roots aren't dangling?
I'm having a tough time
What
with
if you
that.
have the leaves, but the roots aren't dangling like that?
Okay. Patience, okay? There are varieties that favor a top growth. If they're getting very happy in the soil medium, plants are no different than people, okay? Whatever the path of least resistance is I gotta take in order to grow, I'm happy with doing that, okay? If I can get that seed to stand up and it says sunlight, water, life is good, okay? Why would I go through the trouble of pushing roots down. Eventually it got to, and it will, okay? Most seeds, most plants, most situations are that it will, as it begins to germinate under the soil net, and it begins to crack open and that cotyledon begins to start to go and form. Its first response is to drive a root down, okay? That's the first one, because I need to get anchored in something, okay, in order to be able to push against the soil and stand up and grow. That's the normal response that's going into it. One of the things that we've talked about doing when you're planting stuff, if you're finding consistently that what you're getting is top growth and no roots that's coming through, I would encourage you to do either the water container, a plastic cover, or if you're doing a tray of them, okay, where that seed germinates, comes up and it's bumping against that resistance that's there. I can't stand up, okay, going through. It says I gotta get tougher. The stem is gonna get thicker as it's attempting to do it, and it says, dude, I guess I need more roots first, okay? It will throw roots down. And just giving it an extra day or two in that scenario, okay? And you monitoring what's going on, you go, huh, I got roots now, okay? And now I'll let the plant take off and get happy and grow, okay? So know your crop, know what you're going through, and try to change the environment and the results that you're getting, okay? It's kind of this whole idea where we're kind of going all the way back to the basics on this thing and going through and saying, how are we doing, what's not working, what's going on, okay? Get through this summertime thing that we can get to fall and we can get serious about growing plants, okay? So that's, okay, now here's one that's just germinating through a root, okay? That's the usual first response for a plant, okay? Now obviously the difference between the two of them, number, quantity, size, and all that, top growth, okay? If you're in this condition, okay, I'm gonna get it out of that tray, okay? I'm gonna get it into an environment where it says, I'm a plant, I'm by myself, give me what I need to grow, and I'll take off and start producing for you, okay? So this is a part of, like I say, while we're going through practice sessions, while we're working towards it, I'm getting real good at growing X variety of crop, okay? Kale, spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, you pick them, what's going on. This is my strength that's here. I've spent enough time with them, I'm seeing it, yep, I'm getting familiar with those roots that are coming down. This thing on the top, blocking that seed from coming up, that's working for me, okay? Peroxide kind of worked a little bit better, but maybe I'll try the peroxide vinegar, okay? For the next batch going around. Well, that made a big difference going through, okay? Your scenario, your tray, your environment, and altering as many elements as needed to produce your crop successfully, okay? Okay. Questions? I'm gonna ask you for some interaction. There's got a tray that's here, and I'm gonna pick on Chad a little bit because I've seen pictures, Michael, I've seen pictures from you on your tomato plants and that, but you're indoor, up against a window, and he showed pictures of pretty good looking plants that are going through, okay? What's the possibilities? Temperature control, okay? Light control. Choice of crop that he's growing in an indoor environment, okay? Give me a little bit of history on what you've done, what's worked, and what hasn't.
Well, I started my tray off, it's in the dining area of my kitchen, so on our table, and they came up to a certain point, and we had some containers, and we started collecting 2-liter bottles. We had some coffee containers left over, and just as, it was kind of a process as we didn't have enough at one time, but, what I did was, obviously the 2 liters, I left the normal label there, then I just used some painter's tape to tape off the 2 areas that were exposed to keep the sunlight out. And just slowly, as I got more containers, started transferring over. So they sit in front of our slider, and that area gets probably 3 to 4 hours of direct morning sunlight. And then of course, once it gets about 11:30, 12 o'clock, sun's overhead, their gardens start to get shade. And then, so obviously just by your source kit, I got, gallon things of water. I mix my fertilizer up in that. I just did them all once. They're all still got a lot of water. The little cup, the coffee containers have like a yellow lid, so I can see the droplets all in the lid. So the moisture and the humidity's in there. And then I just let them go. Put them all there, and that's it. So if anyone wants to see the picture, I could show anyone. So
Yeah. And while he's calling up those, who's having trouble? I can't get a thing to grow type of person?
I killed my plants. I brought the
Okay.
cemetery.
Yes,
Cemetery.
You have plants with you or pictures or?
Yeah,
she's
I
got-
brought them with me
Okay.
for example of what not to do.
Would it be okay if I got them or?
And I put them in water just because I felt bad for them, but literally just today, they went without water for like 2 weeks. And I'm sure it was grew fungus, because there was stuff. You mentioned something about wood. I put them on wood.
Okay.
They're in indoor and indirect, indoor, natural sunlight covering.
Okay. All right. Where are you seeing in the plant, where are you not seeing taking place? Right?
They're not
See, it's drooping.
Weakness, not much structure in that to it. Things are going on. And I'm only making an assumption
No,
here.
yeah.
But
They were on opposite ends of the tray,
Okay.
same tray.
but they are leaning towards a light source? They're
The
growing?
light source is directly above them, and it's a natural light.
Okay. Okay. Got plenty of root, okay? But once again, as we're regrowing, and we can take these and try to grow them on, okay? Not trying to discourage that. But as you get better at germination, strength, that starting up, and seeing things like even this small amount of germination, but I've got root, time to get into a new container.
Yeah, see, I
Time to
didn't
start
transfer
growing
them
on.
because I didn't know when to
Okay.
do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how badly they were already bad, so I just wanted to experiment and see what happens.
Okay, so things like light intensity, duration of sunlight, okay? Germination method in terms of how is it coming up, okay? Is it one that grew an awful lot of top growth? I couldn't get any roots to come through,
I couldn't,
okay?
it was hard to.
If this is one, add a little weight on the top, okay? If you're in a high light, high sunlight area, again, we're trying to deflect or reflect heat that's back onto it. So if you're going to cover over the top of these, you've got another element that can trap heat. Okay? Wrap it in foil. Make sure it's under shade cloth. Whatever you can do to eliminate things that can work against you going through. Okay? Simple little piece of plastic, whatever, a rock, whatever you're going to use. Heavy enough to do it. Keep that heat source away. I want the weight.
So I didn't know the difference between what you were talking about earlier with the light measuring and the heat, like you can feel in the room, because my house stays approximately 72, 73, 74-ish. Doesn't really get hot at all in my house, and so the direct sunlight was where my confusion was, because it's a natural sunlight kind of like dome thing, and so I didn't know how much light was actually coming on it.
That's the one thing that you'll notice if you get the lux meter, especially with like modern dual pane windows, they have a coating on them called low E, which actually is to block sunlight. But I mean, you'd be amazed at how much a single pane of glass blocks sunlight. I mean, you'll be 125,000 lux outside, and then you'll be like 8,000 lux on the other side of that window, even though it's looking
Yeah.
at the sun directly. The glass blocks quite a bit. Just for reference, I've noticed because I got grow lights on the rack that I'm starting things in, and I'm starting to figure out that once that seedling pokes through, it's time to get it out in sunlight, because I had a batch of kale I did under the grow lights, which was around 18,000 lux. And theoretically, I mean, yeah, they're grow lights. You know, you're supposed to be able to grow plants with them, but they were getting real leggy even under that. So the next batch I do, I'm gonna, as soon as I get that seedling, get that germinated, you know, get some
Outside.
strong set of leaves, it's like I'm gonna kick them out into the sun so they can get.
So light and light intensity is critical in terms of continuing on. The grow light scenario, enough that generates a response of the seed. Some of them don't like light, but they just start to grow, and then they get the light and they're okay, but they don't need light to do it. But that will produce enough of a seedling growth, okay? Now we're talking about, I'll be with you in just a second, Deborah. Then what you do is, as Michael said, get them to your outdoor environment in that, okay? But you don't want to take them from a 70-degree, low light, posh existence to here's the container of water out in full sun at 97 degrees, okay? You just kiss that plant goodbye.
Will you stop picking on me?
Hey, I did that though, and it really sorted out the weak and the strong.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, so there's the process called hardening off, okay? And that can be done outdoor by itself, okay? Under a couple things of like shade cloth and that, okay? What we're gonna be doing is gradually introducing plants to its preferred level of intensity of sun, exposure to sunlight, and the ability for it to photosynthesize and become a plant producing fruit crop, whatever it is that we're attempting to do with that plant, okay?
I was gonna say with the tomatoes, because like, so what I did, I've killed trays of stuff, and what I found out is that my current batch, what I did was I started them out under grow lights, germinated until they started to sprout up, and then I moved those out to my patio, so it gets like 3 hours of direct sunlight in the morning, just real low angle, and then it's probably actually less light over the course of the day. And I had them out there for a couple of weeks, a week or two, just to get used to the temperature and to get used to that sunlight. And then I transferred them into larger net pots and put them in I have a tub with like 4 gallons of water in it, transferred them that, and now they're in their final location.
And then these are like, I legit did not transfer at all. And then, so that might have helped. And then my question about the fact that they grew disease, I had them on, why did some grow it more than others? And they were without water for a while, so what made it grow whatever that is?
That part will go back to my original statement. You will be surprised how much moisture this growing media holds that you're unaware of. Oh my God, they're dry. Okay? The medium is already saturated. It's wet. Okay? In the medium itself going in. I just continue to add because I think they need more moisture into it. I need to get them into the environment that they can make best use of the moisture that's already there, while protected, with as much exposure to sunlight, based on where the type of plant, where it's located, what time of year we're growing, okay?
I have one more question about that,
Sure.
that batch. So, the other thing that happened was I ran out of food because I didn't know how to mix the mixture.
Okay.
I didn't have like the right portions
Okay.
of measurement, so I was just like, I don't wanna do the wrong chemical reaction. So, one, can we get that ratio listed on the, whatever that's called, can we get that on there? And then two, what happens when they go without food, water?
What happens to you when you go without food? Because you're dependent upon the last meal that you had for a period of time, and then you start depleting yourself beyond that point.
So would
okay?
that make them up?
Same scenario. They don't necessarily die, but you're gonna get weaker. You're gonna get in a worse condition, okay? Rather than having consistent food going into it. So
How soon should they get food?
How soon should they grow it?
Like how soon, like if I don't eat for a certain amount of time, I'll die.
Yeah.
So how soon should they get food?
Okay.
Like if for some reason you go out of town,
that-
you can't come back home.
I'm glad you gave it up in general, but it kind of feeds into exactly what we're talking about. We're into a stress season with high heat, high light, all the conditions that can work against you. Okay? We initially plant these out. The instructions were to use pH balance, water by itself. Okay? Because the plant, when it germinates, and that's in those seed leaves and that, okay, can feed and provide for the plant itself for at least a 5 to 6 day period of time. That's kind of that boundary time when things should be changing over, okay? Let them go a little bit longer than that, gets back to not enough food. That's what the food they carry is in those seed leaves as they open up, okay? Once that, and you'll see as your plant begins to grow, all those two leaves are different than the other ones, okay? Suddenly begin to turn yellow and kind of shrivel up and die, okay? They've given every ounce of everything that they have to do it. They start to drop off, okay? And regular true leaves take over and photosynthesis takes in, okay? And all the requirements of I need more food and all the stuff that goes with it, okay? The answer to your question is we're in a stress season, that highlight, high intensity, is you go through and initially plant and we're using just pH balanced water, no nutrients and that's into it in that. You begin to get that point where I don't really care if you're seeing this stage of plant growth, okay? But you're beginning to see, and part of growing your crops and all that's there is you suddenly look at that smooth ground that seed was put into and all of a sudden it's busted up, kind of fluffing up and starting to break up in that. That seed is germinating, okay? It's beginning to stand up and moving the dirt out of the way and putting the roots down and starting to come up. At that point, we get into this stress season, and not too bad a rule in general, is at that point, I now have water in the tray, just straight water that's going through. We suggest you go to half strength solution, okay, at that time. The way you can accomplish that is to mix up a gallon of full strength, okay? And as you need to add water from below, add the full strength in, it's now mixing with the water that you already have in the tray, okay? May not necessarily be 50% solution when it gets in there, but you're suddenly giving the plant a food source that's there, okay? And it takes it up and gets a little bit stronger in that. So by the time that this one, I'll keep going back to this one gets big enough, you pull up and check and go, wow, it's got a root, okay? What you've done is enhance it to the point that when you take it and transfer it to your next size container and fill it, you're gonna fill it with full strength solution going in, okay? We're training the plant, we're teaching the plant, okay, that suddenly this food source is going to be available. You know, you don't want to give full, rich food from day one as a baby type of thing, okay? You're going to gradually work them up into things. That's a way of doing that in general, but especially as you're going through more of a stress type season. Stress possibilities are out there. Begin to introduce nutrients in that to it as the plant is beginning to respond. It's got a carry package on it for food source in that with it. And that's going to deplete real quick, especially in warm weather. The plants that normally would take X amount of time to really kind of get going. Suddenly in summertime, wow, that came up in like half the time. It's responding to all the conditions, good, bad, or otherwise. It's responding to them. Yeah, okay, off I go. I'm gonna start growing. Go ahead and start doing that training session of dumping into the tray. Your idea is not to be a successful tray grower, unless that's what you're intending to do, so we can provide plants for the church to grow from, okay? If that's what you want to become, it's there, because that's what I'm going to do. I can walk you through specific crops, how we do it, okay, with that as the goal in mind. If My goal is to produce a bean plant, because I want 28 pounds of beans here as quick as I can get them on that plant growing, okay? We're gonna get crop specific on how you do it, looking at your environment, with your cropping at, and I need you on Slack showing what you're doing, okay? Talking about it, okay? Because maybe Chad's growing beans at the same time. You two start to compare notes, okay? You know, crop specific, things you like, things you favor, things that you're getting good at in that. Between now and October 1st, that's what I'm looking to lock down on, okay? Can we get these things to germinate at all? And how do I get there, okay? Deborah.
What if you didn't give them the nutrients quick enough? Like, should you just throw them out, or can
Well,
they come back if you start giving them the right
Okay,
amount of
I'm pretty much a realist, okay? There are a lot of opportunities where if I came over and looked at those, okay, leave the trash can, you go. There are plants, they're missing the meaning way. This would be tough to try to, okay? This one I would try, okay? That one I would try, to do what you can with it, okay?
You would try?
Try, okay? Give it a better set of environmental conditions that it has to grow in. Change what's going on. Maybe it's lacking light. Maybe it's lacking airflow. Okay? Maybe it's lacking shade protection. It's out there. Give it a try. Okay? Worst case is you're going to find out what works and what doesn't. And you're going to put it on Slack. Because that's what we need to know.
So then I'm not poisoning myself because it's already growing disease? The
Is it-
plant?
She's not poisoning herself if it's already got some
Oh,
disease.
no. How do you describe this?
Give it a bath.
Give it a bath?
I'm kind of getting more to the.
No, spray it with that stuff. Just
I'm
start it
a meat eater. I love meat. Okay. I know when a steak tastes good versus what's wrong with this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
How is it grown? Okay. The end result of this one is I'd buy that thing all the time. That's got good flavor to it. This one tastes like leather, okay, or whatever, because there isn't strength into it. Is there a toxic or a poison or whatever in it? No, okay. It's just a weak plant. It's less than desirable what you want it to do, okay. So like I say, give them a try, okay. I mean, quite honestly, if you've had pots in a tray for
A month.
6-11,
It says 21 days.
we're gonna start over.
And what do you do with all the soil and stuff?
Okay,
Yeah, there you go.
my answer to that one would be, again, I don't wanna throw away, discard, add to expenses and that's going out.
You just dump some over.
The ultimate goal of what we're attempting to do is I need seed, I need seedlings, and I need mother plants, okay? Mother plants to produce either vegetative cutting or seed from as an ultimate source, okay? Going through. We've talked in the concept of learn how to do the hydroponic part, just getting the germination up and growing. But that ultimately, either for long-range crops or for things like mother plants and that you're going to grow in a non-hydroponic environment, into a 5-gallon container, into a garden area, okay, that you can have, that we can put plants into and allow it just to grow for the purpose of cuttings or for seed off the plant that's there. I would take the non-successful grows that you have, okay, and start to fill up 5-gallon buckets of that type of thing, okay? As you come out of a grow, you cut your plants off, and it's just root and that's in there. You can discard it, okay? Spray it around your garden and all that. But I'd like to see it put to an ultimate use, which is we're going to start generating quantities of soil that plants can be transferred into, okay? So what do? I take this, I transfer it into a 5-gallon bucket, or I'm going to grow as a mother plant that's going in. I'm going to take my peroxide vinegar, my thyme oregano oil, okay? And as I dump them in, I'm gonna spray the top of the soil going through, mix it around, spray a little bit, okay? Put it out in sunlight, let it disinfect itself. It's going through, okay? That's not 100% assurance, but it's a pretty good assurance that you're getting rid of 90% of the nasties that could generate down the road, okay? So that, maybe a long-winded answer to you is try to use it for a next step, an ultimate use of plant material. You know, if your plant is peppers that you grow, okay? Somewhere down the road, I'm hoping that I can get you to go 1 to 100 mother plants going through that we can harvest peppers off of, cut them open, take the seeds out of, pass out the pepper, and store up the bag of seeds going through. And we can have a place in your garden setting, in a container, whatever type of deal, to grow and have a reliable source of mother plants for down the road. Okay? Other question?
Mine was more directed to the app that you said. What should the light metering range be?
You just Google it for each plant. I mean, I'm kind of going off of the general rule of, you know, this is full sunlight, you know, what are my light conditions inside? And then, like I said, as I'm going along, I'm figuring out that, like, well, 18,000 lux is giving me leady seedlings, right? So
You can go out and there are graphs, colored pictures or whatever that will show basically different intensities of light. And I'll have a list of plants that under ideal conditions, this is the most favorable environment of light for a particular type of plant, okay? You start getting into grow lights and you're growing a specific crop, cannabis, okay? You go into that industry that's out there and you go into it. There are very specific frequencies of light, colors of light, duration of light and all that for that particular crop. It's there. And the hydro stores are packed full of equipment of that to accomplish that, okay? So like I say, if you're growing in a general tray, get them started under a grow light inside if you need to. Start them however you're gonna get them up, okay? The more and more we get into your favorite, your thing, you say, God's telling me I'm gonna start growing kale, spinach, whatever it is, okay? Then I would encourage you to get things like a light graph, okay? It's out there and say, this frequency of light, okay? And that's best accomplished in my scenario, because I take my light meter out to my grow area and say, okay, it's at X number, okay? By adding 30% shade, it puts me in that healthy range for where I want to grow, okay? It adds favor to a specific crop that's going through. Now you got more of the elements attached for producing that crop, okay?
the hardest part I've found is just measuring light. It seems like for every company out there that produces a brand of grow lights, there's a different way to measure light. So there's not really a standard way. So that's why I'm kind of going backwards. I'm saying, wow, these plants don't look like they're getting enough light. What's my light? Okay, so obviously they need more. Versus I go out in my garden. I got some plants that are in full sun. I got some that are under like a 10% plastic, and I got some that are under a 50% shade cloth and the 10% plastic. So I can go out there and be like, okay, these plants look really happy. What's my light intensity here? Okay, so that's a good measure. I got a spinach plant, one that's throwing up seed already. So I go over there and I measure the light there. I'm like, okay, well that's probably too much for this crop at this time of year. And so it's more instead of like, if you can find the graph and then do the math and figure out like what the lux range is, that's great. I was lazy and didn't feel like doing that much Googling. And so I'm just basically taking my light meter and saying this plant's doing good, what are the conditions? And okay, so that's a pretty good light source for that plant.
Okay. And this is why each crop is specific, each location is specific. It's no different than kids in your household versus kids in my household. They're kids. There are general rules that you can follow in that, okay? But on your specific crop that you're responsible for, okay? You gotta learn that environment that they do best in. That's exactly that same scenario that we're trying to do, okay? So I talk of 50% or a 60%, and if you noticed earlier, I hesitated, okay? As a general statement, I can make general recommendations on that to you. Don't come to me and say, Kevin, you just wasted $18 of my money, okay? I'm sorry, okay? The general rule is I'm trying to improve conditions. I'm asking you to become aware of the total environment that you're in and saying, this is the spot that I'm going to be producing crop in, okay? I need to get light meters. I need to know my plants, okay? I need to know when they look this tall, I've got root, get them moved, okay? Don't wait for this one to catch up with what this was right now, because this one's now this tall, and this one gets to here. This one's way,
You should have said something.
okay? And not that it's bad, but it's beyond. See, the roots are bent and curved, okay?
They'll be fine.
The purpose of the tray is to get them started and get them up, to get them into an ultimate container, to get them to be a producing plant as soon as possible.
So I should focus on getting those in containers in my shoe rack.
Exactly. As
Yeah.
soon as you get strong germination, you're happy with the quality of top growth, which means I need to change light intensity, or I need to put a weight on top of here, or whatever your scenarios that you're bumping into. Okay, and you get that. Just remember, your goal is to get that root down through it. Okay, because once you get the root down through it, you're now mimicking it basically being planted in your garden space. It has the entire run of soil to go into however deep it wants to go. That's what that plant is thinking. It's taken out of a confined space into a larger container. Okay, and it goes, woo, I'm free. Okay, and it grows, and off the plant produces. Okay, and the rest is trying to control the environment. So not let a container get to 97 degrees to do what you can to knock it down. Learn your crop, grow them up, preventatives that you can put into it. Okay, light control, temperature control, shade cloth and that going in. Okay, taking and dedicating an area, learning to practice indoor and outdoor. What's working, what's not working. If you're indoor, we need to get you successful on your crops, to get them outside to harden off and get exposure, to get them transferred up. Okay? And you learned that in my condition, 6 days here is 8 days there, then I'm transferred out and I'm over to this. Okay? Not only maybe 3 days here, 12 days in this particular situation, but we're still accomplishing in a 40 or 45 day period of time an end result of a plant with fruit or the leaf crop, whatever it is that you're producing. Okay? And we talk to one another. I don't slack out. This is what I got, this is what I got going on. Okay? I changed up my feeding, I changed up whatever type of thing. Okay? Any other questions? Any other problems that you're having?
I had to take my plants and move them from one side of the house, where they were doing really well, by the way,
Okay.
to the other side of the house, which was much more intensive
Okay.
heat. And I realized, like you said, they started to droop, but not all of them. Some of them were like very happy. And so I actually had to just kind of physically move them around. And I almost have to do it at the moment every couple days. I've ordered this. And so as soon as it comes in, I will put it up, and then I want to make it in such a way actually that it's more of a temporary situation, that I can, like, okay, right now it's sunny, but for a couple hours of the day I'm going to be able to like roll it up,
Yep.
give it more sun
Yep.
when it's not quite as 100 degrees out there.
Yep.
And so I figure if I make it more of a temporary thing as the summer kind of leaves,
Yeah.
I can still use that when I need it and not when I don't.
Yeah, these obviously can be made as portable as you need to, okay? Taller legs, okay, based on your environment, more at an angle over your tray, because I get, all my sun is blasting through, and I want to make sure, so I put it on an angle rather than this way, okay? Do whatever that takes temporarily. Moving a plant from one location to another, and you get a response from the plant. It wilts a little bit, got the couple of yellow spots on the leaves type of deal. It may not be, but that's an undesirable location. Okay? It could be part of, it's like hardening the plant once again. okay? I've changed environments, and my plant has to have a period of time to adjust to it, okay? You're gonna learn real quick, okay? Yeah, that sucker needed to be shaded, okay?
Yeah.
Because now it's dead,
Yeah.
okay? Otherwise, it went through a day or two or three, kind of stressed, not the same as it was in the other location, but all of a sudden, it just perks up and, oh, there's flower on it now.
Yeah.
It's growing,
Yeah.
okay? Learn your crop,
Yeah.
learn your location, okay?
Yeah.
It's going through. So how to, add to your toolbox as many of these elements as possible to put you in favorable conditions for growing, okay?
If you have like a lettuce, can it ever survive outside?
Yes, okay. If you go onto lots of websites, they're out there, or images and that, growing lettuce crops in heat, okay? You will see examples of Las Vegas, okay? Phoenix, Arizona, okay? June, July, August, September, out in the field, okay? Lettuce crops, they're growing, okay? Now, and I'm using this as a general phrase, I love romaine lettuce, okay? Romaine is fairly heat tolerant, okay? There are specific varieties that are heat tolerant lettuce plants, Salanova, a few others that are out there, okay? The general rule is the more open a leaf lettuce it is, the more heat tolerant it is. The more it's a tight, like cabbage or iceberg or something like that, doesn't like hot temperatures at all, okay? In addition to that, out in the field, most of the time in those conditions that you'll see that they have drip irrigation tapes that are running down to put moisture in the ground, obviously, for the general watering that's onto it, okay? They build what they call hoop houses or tunnels, okay? With shade cloth in that, there's two of them. Plants in the ground, hoop house is about yay tall. Bent metal, bent PVC, whatever it is, stuck into it, and stretched over the top of it is 40%, 50% shade cloth that's going into it. In addition, they have, instead of just drip irrigation that's going through, they have small micro sprinklers that throw above water inside the hoop house, okay? The sole purpose of that is based on temperature, based on location, all that, 1 to 3 to 4 times a day, 5 minutes at a time, the sprinklers turn on to throw moisture out. Because as it evaporates going through, you get evaporative cooling that's going down. It cools off the surface of the lettuce and that, okay? Other side of that hoop house, it's 110 degrees. That plant is thinking it's 75, 80 degrees inside here, and it just continues to grow, okay? And commercial growers very successfully grow. Can you do it? Absolutely, okay? Can you do them from seed? Absolutely. We have to give every bit of as many factors as possible for successful germination to get them out into the environment under controlled conditions to finish off that crop, okay? Especially on something like lettuce for the summer season. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say the one big difference between what we're doing and that though is the insulating value of the soil.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it's kind of interesting. I've had a new appreciation for soil and what it does. When you look at like hydroponics, right? Soil, you don't really got to worry about the pH of the water. Soil, there's nutritions in there. You just put compost or new soil in there. You feed them. You get down and if you're covered and you're watered and you're shaded out in that 110 degrees. Like my soil, it's probably about 73, 74 degrees constant. Trying to get that into a cracky jar or a Dutch bucket or, any other, vessel, you're taking the soil out of it. And so the lettuce is does that because that soil down where those roots are, it's like 74 degrees, 72, 71, somewhere around in there, versus trying to keep a cracky jar or, any other vessel at like anything below 80 degrees, it's like, it's a fight. So
Yes, 100% true, okay? Reflective power, the dissipating power of the soil in that to absorb and to spread out the heat is a huge difference. if we're doing this, if we're going after this type of a method that's going through, once again, things like foil that are on here, okay? It may take something like a sheet of foam, okay? That you can put them on and cut an opening into to fit over the top of this with, you can buy this foam with foil already attached to it at Home Depot and that. Reflect the heat off, okay? But to put a cover over the top of this, okay? This with the foil on it helps the oil. You're in shade, okay? You're in a cooler environment that's down below. Now, you could have a hot box down below by trapping the air underneath it. So you would need to have air movement in that space underneath this that's going on. Air circulation is a huge factor.
You got me curious because I have some kale in cracky jars out
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah.
And they're just in glass jars with, I got that bubble wrap insulation.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what the temperature is in there now because they're under the shade cloth with the Dutch bucket kale. I kind of got to throw it side by side to see.
Okay, well, I know that Deborah used a thermometer inside one of these. That's when we got the 97 degree reading
Yeah.
in here.
I
Okay?
kind of want to see what the temperature is because I have them under shade cloth and stuff. So I'm kind of curious, you know.
So the cooler the environment you can provide, obviously the better results.
Whatever
you
they're
get,
at, they're at.
Okay? Yeah. I mean, you're not looking for 28 degree water. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you put a refrigeration system on it. Okay?
Oh no.
But the more you can do to enhance that kind of stuff, that's what we're after. Okay?
So having it in a little black tray,
Yeah.
black is okay then, you don't have to do the foil, is that what, am
Well,
Right.
it depends on ultimately where you're
Where it's
going.
at? Where
What
it's
the
sitting?
exposure is to the radiant heat and the intensity of sunlight that's onto it, okay? Everything with, one is attached to another on the table with a stucco house here, okay, and a concrete floor and all that heat around it,
Yeah.
okay? You're gonna be absorbing heat, okay? All right. And black is the standard color in the nursery industry throughout the world,
Yeah.
okay? But in general, we're still attempting to dissipate the heat that we don't need, okay? I want to try to keep a crop. You know, if I'm in Holland or I'm in Spain or I'm here, wherever type of thing, my crop I want to grow at a certain condition at. This will help absorb heat. Once I accomplish that goal, I want to try to somehow or another deflect, eradicate, vent, change so that I can keep as constant a temperature as possible on the environment. So this doesn't heat up for 3 hours a day to 91 degrees. When my goal is 74 or 76 degrees, it's going in. But overnight, the temperature drops down to 48 degrees during the night, okay? But those hours of the high temperature will damage your crop.
But not when you're just starting them, that's why the black works when you're just
Yeah,
starting.
black is fine because, again, the thing is I want to attract enough heat. The same statement. I want to attract enough heat to keep my plant happy and successful. And black accomplishes that, okay? When I get to any point of excess, I'm going to do whatever I can to eliminate or eradicate that excess amount, okay? And this is where things like shade cloth, all that kind of stuff come in. A simple thing of air circulation, okay, can make the difference. You can drop the temperature with a simple little oscillating fan in there, okay? Just moving the air around, okay? You're also eliminating trapped humidity, stagnant air, potential for soil diseases, that type of thing, okay? That can contribute to you not having a successful growth, okay? So like I say, the ideal place for growing is an isolated place, all by itself, north-south exposure, covered with a proper amount of shade cloth for adjusting for light intensity, with air circulation going through. Every day here, 1:30, that coastal breeze kicks in, okay? It can take over, you can turn your fans off, okay? That coastal breeze will come through and be your air circulation. If you have dead air, a dead environment, okay? Something like an oscillating fan will make a huge amount of difference. If you're on a bookshelf type of a system, when you've got each of those cubbies is trapping heat, blocking light, not allowing air circulation all the way through everything. I would strongly encourage to take a bookshelf type of a system and dedicate something like a flat area, a table, a bench, whatever type of thing, and put your flats out where they're getting exposed to even light, air circulation is going through. Okay? Change the environment for what's going on, and you'll see a lot better results.
Why is a table that's flat any different than a shelf that's flat?
Because if we did this at
You could
David's
raise,
house the
you
other
could
day,
raise it on
if
the
you
shelf.
take the
with
bookshelf
those.
system, and I've got, okay, watch what happens here. I'm gonna put this one over the top of it. Okay? This one is getting full light. This one is getting how much light? See the shadow? Okay? That's the difference what we're trying to do. We've now said I want all the same condition or expectation to all my plants, but I'm denying it and looking for the main conditions it needs to grow by stacking them over the top of them. In addition to that, this is a flat wall. My house that it's up against, okay, it can't get air circulation going through it. I have a solid surface table with no ability to get air
Even
in
if
and
you
around.
put those on the shelf?
Okay, on the shelf, that helps. You took, yesterday, she had like thin wooden type shelves, okay? Took those off, and the flat can fit literally side to side over the top of it. Now we got free airflow, and that's going around, okay?
What if you put holes in it?
Put holes in it, okay? Change them over to a wire rack. Make them out of PVC pipe hooked together. It's not that much weight. You know, 1/2 inch with some T's and elbows. This concept right up here, okay? You know, you can put a pretty fair amount of stuff on top of that, weight-wise in that. And now we got air circulation going around it, okay?
Can we back up to that styrofoam with the aluminum on it?
Yeah.
I'm confused because if I put the aluminum to reflect the sun, is that not going to burn the backside of the leaves?
It can, okay? But the thing is that you how do you put this? You're better off, you're limiting that which can add four or five damaging factors by one. And if you have it in that much sunlight, with that much reflection coming off it, now you're cooking your plants just on reflected light. You get too much light intensity. You need to get a shade cloth or something over it to limit it. Yes, sir.
I was going to say with the foil back foams, typically, at least in construction anyway, the radiant barrier goes on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And so you'd actually flip that foam over so that the foil is down below, and so it's keeping the heat out. And then if it's the white foam, the white should be reflecting some sunlight as well.
Because I was pulling it off. I mean, I've had it and I pulled the aluminum off, thinking that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that works the same for plants, but typically your foam is kind of like, or your foil is against where you know your living space, right? So that's a thought too.
Any other questions going through? Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, okay, your tray there,
Yeah.
you're actually only gonna have your seedlings in there maximum 2 weeks. They're gonna be transferred because they've got roots now into a larger container. I planted mine I took them from there, planted them in a larger container, which I painted the top of my lids black, let them dry really good because you don't want paint poison. And then I wrapped the outside with what he's talking about, the aluminum with the puffy stuff. And my plants are growing like crazy, you know? So other than when I moved them to the other side of the house, it's been a little bit of a,
Okay, I would
Scary
hate to
thing.
go on tape and say that you're gonna keep them for a maximum of 2 weeks into it, okay?
Okay.
You're gonna keep them in the container only as long as it's necessary to
Right.
accomplish the movement to the next container.
right, perfect.
There are plants like basil and peppers and that kind of stuff that can take 10 to 12 to 14 days
Okay.
just to germinate,
Okay,
okay? Just to get going.
okay.
So I hate to make a general, you said 2 weeks. okay?
Well, yeah, and I don't wanna go by that, I've lucked out.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, there's like enough roots that I'm like,
There you go.
Pete, I want them out of this little tray.
Okay.
So,
So, when you transfer them to the next phase, is it dirt and water like that? Is it replicating a bigger version of that? Or is it all soil?
No, technically, I could grow a full-grown tomato plant in this pot, given it the right conditions under a large enough container with a large enough steady supply of nutrients in that, okay? This is only the ability to give it something to make the top growth and produce roots, okay? It's not the ideal container for growing a tomato plant in to ultimate size. Indeterminate type of tomato plant, 8, 9, 10, 12 feet long type of plants. You know, stems are big as these things are here, okay? But technically, you don't need to shift it up, okay? Especially with 99% of the crops that we're looking at doing. Spinach, kale, broccoli, you know, all those type of things. Very simple, to maturity from that pot, okay?
So
Okay.
then you're just doing the water nutrients?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay? So I'm hoping that today give you a little bit more information, a little more things to try, okay? Change and control the environment as much as possible, okay? Be preventative. Things like simple sprays and that they're going through, okay? Go through and test a couple of these. Okay? Now, there technically is moisture in there, okay?
Yeah.
This obviously has nothing that's into it, okay? Okay? This holds an incredible amount of moisture in the
Look to see
medium,
if there was a
okay?
baby.
No roots.
Too
Okay?
late.
There was.
I'll bring you some plants. I'll bring you some plants.
That is funny.
Okay, so.
Wait, can you do that again? I didn't see it.
Try another one, let's see.
Sorry for that. I'm just trying to get the point across to you. What looks like it's dry,
Yeah.
okay? You've got to learn this media holds moisture, okay? You're not fighting so much against the moisture content. There are other conditions that we need to change and control. Air circulation, light intensity, shade, okay? Learning your plant. As soon as we got root, into the next container and bring it on, okay? I want to encourage you guys as much as possible to get on the Slack app that's out there, good, bad, and ugly, okay? We're all learning on this whole deal, okay? October 1st is our goal date. I want you guys to start getting real specific in terms of what I want to grow, what you need for your family, what you want to provide for the church on the co-op portion of that. We have a target date that we can kind of work towards, okay? But the more we communicate with each other, okay? I'm happy to stand up here. I'm happy to answer all the questions and that. And I've told people 28 times, I am not an expert at all this. I get good general knowledge in terms of how to try to help people along, and I'm willing to encourage you and get you onto it there, okay? Just like in men's ministry, I may sit in the front seat in that, okay? But every Saturday I walk in, I am absolutely praying that I get 2 or 3 or 6 or 10 guys in that are opening up because I want to learn, okay? I need to learn. I need a constant feed of new information going through. That I can look at things a little bit differently and try stuff out.
But don't
Okay.
Google it.
Okay? Yeah, so talk with each other. I'm happy to help any way I possibly can. I am hoping you, and I've used the phrases before, Aunt Mabel, Uncle Chris, whoever it is that's the expert in your family that knows how to do it, lean on those folks, put it on Slack, let's all learn and be able to take on this project and grow.
Amen.
Okay? Pastor Rick, would you close us in prayer?
I will. Heavenly Father, we thank this opportunity to gather together. I thank you, Lord, for this information and for Kevin. And he may say he's not an expert. He's a lot more expert than we are. And we praise you and thank you for him. We pray, Lord, as we continue to learn and to grow in this thing, Lord, that we would have the patience and that we would have the sense of purpose, Lord, that has been communicated here today. That we would be faithful to do what we can do, and that we would, as Kevin said, share what we're doing with others so that we can all grow and become better at it. Thank you for this. We pray for our little plants, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you all.
That's right.